Hello, this is Christian Okoye, former Kansas City Chiefs. You are listening to Grueling Truth.
Welcome to the Grueling Truth, The Real Deal. I am your host, Josh Benjamin. This show has various sports topics, and the show will be available on Sunday mornings on our website, www.gruelingtruth.net, or on iTunes with the search phrase Grueling Truth to listen to our show anytime you want. I want to give a quick shout-out to Mike Goodpasture for giving me this great opportunity. Can't thank you enough, Mike. The topic for tonight is youth sports and how we can make it the best possible situation for the most important people, involved, which are the kids. I have three guests coming on the show tonight to discuss this topic. One is Michael Johnson, who is a coach at East Central High School and is also a parent. My mother-in-law, which I call Mom, I'll refer her to that all the time, but her name is Nikki Ciminowasielewski, who has coached various youth sports, ran youth sport organizations, and is also a parent. And our last guest, Brandon Benjamin, who is also a coach, parent, and my cousin. Welcome to you three to the show, the very first show for The Real Deal. We have several important items to discuss with all of you. Michael, I got the first question for you. First of all, can you tell us what sports you have coached, and why do you think a coach would coach at the youth level?
Well, first off, just wanted to say congratulations on this, and thanks for having me on. I coach girls basketball at the high school level. I'm the JV coach. I've been there for, 9 years now. And then I also coach baseball at the varsity level. I'm the varsity assistant at East Central High School. This will be my 13th year there. I really just got into coaching because I missed the action. I missed the games, and I really love the game of baseball and basketball. I really enjoyed being out there and wanted to get back into it. So coaching was the best way to go about it. At the youth level, just watching the growth throughout the seasons and across the years is really the main reason that I got into it.
All right, yeah, that's pretty important, especially being at the high school level and watching those youth players grow into what your program wants it to be. So very good. Mom, Nikki, why did you coach at the youth level?
I started coaching at the youth level because I had children that were involved, and they always are in need of coaches, so they kind of rope you into it. But I continued to coach because I loved it, and I saw what an impact it made on things. And I continue to see that growth today as I'm general manager of 2 athletic complexes, both of which have baseball at them, and I see the youth level almost every weekend.
Yes, I just want to touch on that real quick about that position you were talking about as far as the general manager. She's a general manager at 2 softball complexes, and they run fast-pitch softball, youth baseball, and slow-pitch softball through those different complexes, and that's at various levels there. But Brandon, why would you coach, or why did you coach at the youth level?
Well, I just want to echo Mike's sentiments to you. Congratulations on the show, and I hope you'll have a lot of success with it. I don't doubt you'll do a good job at it. I've always kind of had a desire to coach at the youth level ever since I played youth sports. Just unfortunately, with my chosen career, profession, I'm not able to work in the schools or anything like that. So, I'm not able to necessarily, coach at a school or anything like that. So I've gotten into adult coaching, funny enough. But some of the biggest reasons that I wanted to get into youth sports coaching was to kind of teach our kids, basically teach our future. The kids are our future, and it's not necessarily just the sports skills, but the life lessons that come along with almost any sport that we play, especially the team sports, in my opinion, I think are a huge deal. We teach the kids to work together, work through problems together, and, how we can achieve goals, through working as a team. And I think one of the most important things that a coach can do at the youth level is be a role model for the kids. And I think some coaches have unfortunately lost that mindset. I'm not going to say all, because we still see it pretty much everywhere, but there are a few here and there that you find that have lost that spirit of, hey, we got to be a good role model and show these kids what type of adults they need to be when they grow up. So those are the main reasons I've always wanted to coach. And even though I wasn't able to do it at the youth level, I've gotten into adult coaching. I coach. I'm a assistant coach and general manager for an adult semi-pro football team. We're in our third season now. So it's been even though we coach adults, we've still seen kind of a turnover and a change actually in behavior in adults, anywhere from 18 to 35. We still see a change in their behavior even at our level. So it's good to see the change and the impact you have.
Sure, absolutely. I agree with all three of you when it comes to, some of the things that I'm going to reiterate what you guys talked about. Obviously you have to have knowledge of the game and be able to run practices and coach during the game, obviously, and be able to do those things on the fly or, individually or as a group. And being able to, especially at the youth level, make things age appropriate as far as the drills, practices, and it could be individual specified because obviously there's different talent levels, especially at all levels, but more so probably at the youth level. Being a coach and teaching life lessons is one of the things that in the past when I began being a coach, really it's pretty important, and I take that important aspect and run with it when it comes to doing that at the coaching aspect. So this question's for all three of you. What is the role for the coach at the youth level? And, just touch on some different aspects about that role and maybe some examples if you could. So, Michael, can you start with that?
Yeah. I'm gonna go off of what was just said there. Being a role model obviously is the one of the key aspects there. One of the best parts of being a high school coach is being able to lead the youth clinics that we do. We do these for a couple reasons, and number one, it exposes some of the younger kids to a new sport, or gives some of those that have already been through our clinics or seen some of our or been to a basketball game or a baseball game. It gives them a positive experience within the sport, and hopefully keeps them interested in it. And then number two, instilling good fundamentals at a young age, which is grossly overlooked. As they get older and older, as they get into middle school type age group, the only thing that some coaches focus on are the wins and losses and not teaching the fundamentals. And then the third thing is, of course, we do those clinics to raise money for the program, but with a lot of youth organizations, that's the number one goal, and that's really not the number one goal, is raising money for it should be raising the sport, not raising money for your program. But
along with that, these youth coaches, they're basically parents. I mean, I have not seen a coach at the youth level not be a parent, either on maybe their own team or a different team, or maybe at some point in their life coaching their child. These people are volunteers, and they're obviously kid-first coaches, and they're not in it for the glory. At least they shouldn't be anyway. But, Mom, can you touch on, what the role for coaches at the youth level?
I think we're all in agreement. All of us realize, at least in this little chat, that the kids are first, and it's being a good role model, and it's teaching them good morals and values. And like Mike said, teaching them fundamentals. Coaching at the different levels, since I've done rec basketball and then AAU basketball, and I've done rec softball and select softball, you teach different things at the different levels when it comes to things like that. So I think being able to decipher the difference always gives that base of being a good role model and teaching them to be good people, but the skill level that they're taught, identifying that and utilizing that is something that I really love. So whereas I might teach a rec player just how to get the ball across the court, and then I'm working with an AAU player on, their layup shot or something that's more advanced. I like to see the accomplishment in the different age groups and the different variations of things.
I couldn't agree more. Not agree more with all that between you and Michael. They're not trying to win a state title or world championship. There's reasons for those organizations, and kind of the motto, which, at least in my opinion, what it should be is the mission statement should be doing what's best for the kids, and that should be in every decision making process when it comes to those organizations. Brandon, being a parent is obviously a pretty important role, but if they're not the coach, what do you think the role of the parent should be that doesn't coach?
Well, I think the first and foremost is you got to be a supportive parent, not just for your kid, but basically, the whole team if it's a team event, team sport. And that doesn't always mean, tell them they did a great job. That's not going to teach the kid any lessons, but even when they do things wrong, you can correct them and say, this is what you were taught to do. This is the way you should do it, and be supportive. And just basically you want to support that coach because, like you guys alluded to earlier, most of these coaches at this level are doing this for free. They work full-time jobs or wherever else, or, even if it's at the school level, like they're teaching all day and then they're doing practice and stuff and games after school, so it's like working overtime for them. And again, I think sometimes the parents get a little over anxious about their kid getting enough playing time, and I've seen it a few times, not a lot, but a few times where, my kid needs to play more and this and that, and even though the coach is trying to do a good job of spreading the wealth, so to speak, and giving all the kids an opportunity to play. And I think it's a really good chance for the parents to be a friend with their child. I mean, it's a really unique experience because you can kind of share your own life experiences with your child at that point and, pull them aside afterwards and go, well, when I was your age and this happened and you can kind of be a friend to them, and it kind of develops that relationship with them instead of being that authoritative figure that I'm the parent all the time. And if you're the coach, you're still the authoritative figure. It really kind of gives you a chance to switch gears a little bit and change your relationship a little bit with your child. And I think it's a great opportunity that when you're a parent and not necessarily the coach of the organization.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And being that parent that doesn't coach is totally okay. And obviously you can volunteer for things. Whatever sport it may be. Maybe an after season party. You hold at your house or at a conference room or wherever, or you're the person that brings drinks. Volunteer for those little things. One, it helps the coach that's the volunteer out tremendously. I know that through experience. But also you're a part of it. You feel like you're a part of that organization or that team and that family, whatever sport that may be, which is an important role as well. Mom, you were a parent at the youth for just a few years ago. Could you touch on that as far as a role that for a parent that doesn't coach?
Yes. When I didn't coach, one of my daughters had a coach that I really looked up to a lot, and I took something from him that I wish I would have had way back. He called it the circle of criticism, and he wanted us as parents to realize, because it's really hard to do that when you have a child and you love that child and you want them to succeed and you want them to do well, and it's hard to focus on the other people's children at that point in time because you're there for your child. You end up doing it, but it's hard to do that. So his circle of criticism included that one yell at the umpire, one yell at the referee causes the parent next to you to get in on that and be like, yeah, that was a bad call. And then it causes the kids to be that way, and it causes the coaches to be that way. It's just one big circle of criticism. So he was very big on the positive circle instead of the circle of criticism. And so I took that with me a lot and thought about the parent next to me, the kids next to me, what they were feeling, what they were thinking, and, that the referee's human and the umpire's human and the people make mistakes, and that regardless, this is all on one big focus. It's to create a good atmosphere for this child to succeed in. And so I use that in a lot of things that I do today, even adults. Like Brandon said, and it works well. So that's something that I look at as a parent.
Yeah, that's a circle of criticism. That's a life lesson in itself, and to utilize that at any level, especially at the youth level, because they learn it so young, they're able to carry that on throughout their whole life. So that's a great point. Some of the things that are kind of just randomly in my head right now, I'm thinking about parents that don't coach. Encourage your kids to go play outside. There's so much technology nowadays, and there's no more the backyard playing as much. I was listening to someone on a radio station a couple of days ago talking about how he was driving past a baseball diamond, and they had about 15 kids out there, and they were organized their own way to play the game. And I think that's important, to be able to go out there and compete, not with instruction, not with, coaches on you or parents on you telling you exactly what to do, to kind of enjoy the game, so that when you get older, you appreciate those times, and you're able to, kind of fall back on them and talk about them later in life, and maybe even use those as you get older in that sport as well. So I just want to put that in there. Michael, as a parent, I believe your young ones are getting ready to get into some youth sports. Are you going to coach those at all? Coach those sports, or are you going to sit back and kind of help out a little bit, or are you just going to be the parent that doesn't coach, or kind of throw us into your situation there?
Well, I've got a 4-year-old right now who's in his second year of T-ball, and it kind of coincides with my baseball season here. So I am not coaching, and I get asked every year, hey, if you want to step out here and help, go ahead. And I back away, and I want to be that parent. I want to be that parent that doesn't coach, because I get a little burnt out if I'm coaching high school and then have to, for lack of better words, dumb it down a little bit, or make it age appropriate. So I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to encourage my little guy and encourage the other kids around. I think one of the biggest things is, as a parent that doesn't coach, getting to know the other kids on the team and kind of making sure that it's okay to cheer for the other kids. It's okay so that your child sees that and understands that, hey, my dad wants him to do well too, or her to do well, because he's on my team. But that way, there's not that me mentality that so many youngsters have these days, that when they get into high school, the only thing they're worried about is their stats. And that's not being part of the team, So like you said, just encourage your kids, encourage them to have a positive attitude, and encourage them to be a member of a team, and not just worry about themselves and what they're doing and what they're not doing.
Right, absolutely. They, and this falls back on all the things you guys reiterated about, being part of a team, being supportive for others, and that circle of criticism. All that falls back on life lessons, and I'm a full believer. I can't say that enough. Like, I could talk hours about life lessons in sports, and that may be another topic later on down the road. But being a coach, there are certain methods or ideas that you use. Mom, what were some that maybe were unique, or ones you just fell in love with that you use all the time, or kind of explain some of those if you could.
Some methods that we used.
Unique ideas that you used as a coach.
When they were really young, we gave stars for different things. For the most Christ-like child, for the most sportsmanship, for the one that was the best friend of the day, little things like that. And then they weren't as focused on doing well themselves, like succeeding in their own thing. Some of them were more worried about getting the white star, and so they were going to be extremely helpful to the next kid. And that was one of the things that made me see them grow as kids more than grow in the sport that they were playing.
Okay, yeah. Brandon, you said you coached some adult level sports, and those can be used obviously and manipulated to be used at the youth level. Are there any methods or ideas that you use today as you coach to maybe motivate, maybe it's practice involved, maybe it's game involved? What are some things that you use as a coach?
I think the biggest thing for me when I'm coaching, and I noticed this looking back on when I was playing sports, is just really paying attention to who you're teaching. I try to tend to get to know the guys that I'm teaching. I'm kind of our defensive coordinator. We don't really have a role for it, but I coach our linebackers. I try to get to know each one of our linebackers, and I get to know their name and what they do and where they work, and what kind of things they like to do outside of football, other than football. And then you start seeing how they respond to different types of criticism. Are they the person that needs to be yelled at a little bit and kicked in the butt, and they're going to perform better and you're going to get what you need out of them? Or is this the kind of guy that I need to put my arm around and go, hey man, I know you're better than this, and I know you can do a good job. So for me, the biggest thing is just getting to know, and that works for kids too, getting to know the type of kids that you're teaching. I think Nikki alluded to it earlier. Is this a rec league team of 12-year-olds that just want to get together and play basketball, or is this a 16-year-old AAU team that they're trying to get scholarships to college one day? Just listening to your or seeing who your audience is and how they're going to receive you, I think, really is a big deal as far as how you're received as a coach teaching the skills and how they receive your life lessons that they teach, that you're wanting to teach them.
Right, and just quickly touch on that. Tweaking anything, whatever level it may be, it could be individualized, it could be group specific. Tweaking and finding that little niche for whoever or what group is so important, because building relationships and figuring out what makes them tick and makes them go is pretty important as far as putting that team together. We talked about parents and coaches already, but we haven't talked about the big one, the parent-coach conflict. And I'm going to start with you, Michael. Could you tell listeners a story about maybe a parent-coach conflict, whether it involved you or someone else? You don't have to name any names. And what was the result of that conflict at the very end?
Yeah, a couple years ago, and we do this quite often. We will take some of the freshmen, and this is for girls basketball, and we'll say, you're going to practice with the JV team. You're going to play a little bit with the JV team, but you're going to be swing players. You're going to bounce back and forth between the freshman team and the JV team. And a couple of years ago, we did this with a group of freshmen. I think there were 3 of them there. And we're always preaching team to our girls. And one dad, the dad of one of these girls, we're very upfront with them too. We tell them ahead of time, the reason we're doing this is because you may not get as much JV time as you might want. So we want to develop you. We want to put you on the freshman level and get your game time, get your game experience up. As the season progresses, your role may change. So we're upfront with them. We had played one JV game, no freshman games, and I had a confrontation with this dad because he did not agree with how his daughters spent their JV game. It was a close game, and they didn't play a whole lot. We, as a coaching staff, didn't think they were ready. So, they were expected to be on the bench and support the team, and when their number was called, go in and do their job. But, okay, so this one game, they didn't get as much time as he had hoped for, I guess. So the next day after school, he was waiting outside the coach's office with his arms crossed and red-faced, and he explained to me that he wasn't real happy with how I coached that game, which we won, but that's neither here nor there. So I explained my reasoning behind substitution patterns, and I guess I didn't explain it the way he had hoped, and he grabbed his daughters, and they left, and we never saw them again. So the moral of that story was just to be patient in the process, and high school sports aren't a rec. They're not the same as a rec league. I mean, not everyone, and you guys all understand that, and your listeners understand it, that not everybody's going to play the same amount. No, not everybody has the same role, and roles can change. But he wasn't ready, and he wasn't very willing to be patient with that process. So he took his girls, and he made them both quit.
Yeah, that's a shame in that result. But things like that have to happen. And I mean, you stood by what you told the parent and the player, and you were up front. I mean, I'm not sure how much clearer you could get. Mom, obviously you've coached a long time and did things around sports. Can you give us a parent-coach conflict and what happened at the very end?
I think that there's a lot of parent-coach conflicts exactly like the one that Mike just explained. A lot of parents are there to see their child play, and that's all they can focus on. And ultimately, it hurts the child. We had a very similar situation when my husband coached high school volleyball, and the parent couldn't get over it. And at that time, we established a 24-hour rule. Most parents want to approach you as soon as possible. Right after the game, they're pretty heated. They're pretty upset. I'm surprised that you said your parent waited until the next day and was standing outside, because usually they're waiting right outside the door as soon as the game's over. But we established a 24-hour rule and handed it out to the parents ahead of time that no one could contact the coach until 24 hours after the game, until they'd had time to think about it. But like Mike, the parent had the child quit. Unfortunately, that child came to my husband later and said she really loved volleyball. She loved the game. She understood her playing time, and that she wished her dad wouldn't have done that, because it really wasn't her, it was him. And the life lesson in that is that we need to listen to our kids as parents. We need to talk with them and realize that might not, the girls that you're talking about probably understood everything. Like you said, you pointed it out. And it was him that couldn't get over it, not her. So fortunately, there's parents that will listen, and then unfortunately there's some that won't. But those are the lessons we should learn from that.
And what's funny is I have my notes down here in front of me, and I have, approaching a coach, and I put down 24-hour rule, to be calm and professional. And I put in all caps, and not around the kids. At least in my opinion, I don't know if a parent needs to be with their child to approach the coach. I think that's more, is it involve the child? Yes, but, seeing, especially if a parent isn't professional and isn't calm, that kid could, learn a lesson on what not to do and end up being like that, unfortunately. And, that emotion that Mike was talking about, that parent, it seemed like to me, parents that try to live their dream through their child, you just got to let them be them, like you said, Mom. Listen to them, and they have different qualities, and understand them before things get heated. Being a high school coach, Mike, it's pretty important to be a part of your youth sport organizations in that specific sport. In what ways I know you talked about camps earlier. Maybe in other sports, what do you do to help or participate? With the youth level, whether it's helping coach or clinics for coaches or camps. I probably just stole a couple of your ideas, but, elaborate on it just a little bit, if you would, please.
Yeah, well, like you said, besides our youth camp, our basketball program runs the rec league for our 3rd and 4th grade, and also our 5th and 6th grades. We have our high school girls actually go and either coach a team by themselves or they're helping a parent coach, which is has been an unbelievable asset to us, because having the girls coach it's bolstered their in-game decision making, and they're all around basketball IQ. I mean, knowing when to call a timeout, when you should and when you shouldn't, sort of thing. I mean, things you don't think of. That's helped us out immensely. And then also, it gives our youth girls a reason to follow our high school athletes in our high school program. It gets them more interested because they form those relationships with the girls. And then along with that, we have our freshman coach actually coaches one of our travel teams, because we, at the end of our rec league, we hold tryouts, and the high school coaches actually choose our travel teams. So we know our girls from kindergarten on. We've got kindergartners. We had kindergartners coming to a winter camp, kindergarten, first, second grade. That knowing those girls at that age and just getting to know them, like we've said, getting to understand what drives them, helps us in the long run. You know, making sure they're doing the fundamentals when they're in kindergarten, or at least trying to do them, just helps us out in the long run. So we're pretty active with our girls there on the basketball side. Baseball, on the other hand, is a little bit different, because so many kids play travel ball out of Cincinnati. Actually, we do have a rec league there at Sun and Dearborn, and the president of the league is actually a volunteer assistant. His name is Brian Kelling. He played for the Reds, played in the Reds organization, and actually made it all the way to the big leagues. He's a volunteer assistant with us, but he's the president of SDYAA Rec League baseball. So he's involved there and with us, and but we don't see as many kids there on the baseball side, because so many of them are playing on different teams throughout around Cincinnati.
Yeah, and kind of put all that together. The sports experience for the youth, whether that's coming from the high school program or their volunteer coach, or from their parent, or from just a clinic or camp that's outside that organization, is so important. I have this question for all three of you. In your opinion, what is the perfect youth sports experience? I know you could talk forever about that, but if you could, limit to a couple of sentences, the perfect youth sports experience, what would you say, Brandon, would be that in your mind?
I think the biggest thing for me is that all the kids get the same amount of playing time, and they all get some kind of valuable life lesson out of, playing in a team sport. Again, it's really, really difficult to do that, but I think if we are able to achieve that, I think that's what the importance of youth sports is, not just the technical skills, but giving all the kids an opportunity to learn life lessons.
Okay. Mom, if you would touch on, the perfect youth sports experience, what would that be, in your opinion?
This is the first time I'm going to disagree with somebody here, and I'm sorry, Brandon, but I don't think everybody should get the same amount of playing time. I don't think that teaches kids a lesson. I think that goes back to the whole everybody is the same, and I don't think we're all the same. So although I'd like to see them all get an ample amount of playing time, I think that what they bring from that is, I want them to bring from that is good communication skills, the skills that they're learning for the sport itself, and, of course, how to be good individuals and learn to realize that there are people that are always going to be better than them and people that are always going to be less than them, but we're all going to work together for one common goal.
That sounds like my classroom, with all the different ability levels and being able to meet each child's needs. And some kids can study for an hour and still not get it, or one kid could study for 10 minutes and the day before the test and get an A+, and it takes another child 3 hours. And so they have to understand themselves. And I totally agree with those comments. Michael, perfect youth sports experience. Maybe you had one when you were a child. I don't know, maybe, but kind of touch on that perfect experience in your mind.
Perfect youth experience. I'm thinking about it from a T-ball point of view here. I think all the players, you need to make sure they have fun. I mean, it's got to be fun for them. They need to learn some knowledge of the game. And then, outside of T-ball, get into coach's pitch and kid pitch. They've got to learn to lose. Mm-hmm. They've got to win some, they've got to lose some. And there needs to be a champion of that league. There needs to be, the everybody wins mentality that our youth have been fed for so long. Everybody's getting that trophy. Sometimes they need to realize they need to stand out on the field and watch somebody else win the trophy. And they don't need to get a medal or a certificate, because all that does is say, hey, you weren't as good, but you're still going to get something.
Right.
And along with that, never mind, cut that part out.
No, that's fine. I was going to say, seeing someone win and obviously you being on the losing side, that promotes motivation and promotes self-awareness and what did I, analyzing what just happened and things like that. And so that's very important as well. I'm going to kind of wrap it up here. Mom, can you tell me a positive story about an experience, not necessarily when you play, or it could be, or, for a child when you are a coach or a parent?
There's tons, but I think one that stands out in my mind is a kid that had been switched from team to team to team. His parents were hard to get along with, and it was rec ball, and they kept tossing him around. They didn't have room for him, or they'd end up not calling him for practice and different things like that. And he ended up on my brother's team, actually. And my brother took to this kid very well, and he ended up being an extremely good ball player. He was awkward at first, but developed extremely well, and went on to pitch for Texas A&M. So just a very big success story. Awkward, backwards, kind of not motivated kid in the very, very beginning, and just developed so well, and had somebody not picked him up and gave him the time of day, he might not have done that. I'm sorry.
Okay. We've spent almost close to an hour on here, and this is the first show of The Real Deal. I appreciate Michael, my mother-in-law, Nikki, and my cousin Brandon for coming on and sharing their thoughts and opinions and stories. Couldn't thank you guys enough for coming on and doing that. For everyone else out there that's listening, just a reminder to check out our website, gruelingtruth.net, or the most popular, iTunes, with the search phrase Grueling Truth, to listen to all of our shows anytime you'd like. For my guests, Michael, Nikki, and Brandon, this is your host for The Real Deal, Josh Benjamin. Thanks for listening to The Real Deal and The Grueling Truth. Until next time, be real with what you say.